At the age of 82, when I look back on the long road of life I have walked, I realize that I have learned a great many lessons about living. I have experienced joy and sorrow, success and loss, and there was a time when I truly believed I was wise enough to make the right decisions for myself. Yet there is one decision that, even now, I cannot stop regretting: the decision to move into a nursing home. At that time, everything seemed reasonable. My family advised me that it was the safer option, that I would be properly cared for, and no longer have to worry about my health or daily routines. They told me I would be more comfortable, more at ease, and no longer lonely. I believed them. I entered the nursing home with the hope of a lighter life, a place where I could finally rest after many years of taking care of myself. But after only a short time, I realized that reality was very different from what I had imagined. Life there was not simply a change of residence. It was a quiet turning point that slowly overturned every aspect of my life. Familiar things gradually disappeared, while limitations appeared more and more. Only then did I understand that a nursing home is not merely a place of care, but a decision that can change an entire life. And the most painful realization was that once you step inside, the road back to your old life is far more difficult than you ever expected. After a short time living in the nursing home, I began to realize that this decision was not simply about changing where I lived, but about a silent yet profound shift in my entire life. At first, I tried to comfort myself, telling myself that I just needed time to adapt. I believed that everything would eventually be fine, that this sense of unfamiliarity was only temporary. Yet as the days passed, that unease did not fade. Instead, it grew stronger, fed by small but persistent changes that slowly accumulated. The familiar habits I once took for granted suddenly no longer existed. I could no longer freely decide when to wake up, when to eat, or what I wanted to do during the day. Every aspect of daily life followed a fixed schedule, arranged in advance for dozens, even hundreds of other people. Gradually, I realized that life there was designed for ease of management, not for each individual to live according to their own rhythm. What hurt me the most was not the unfamiliar room or the bare walls, but the feeling that I was slowly losing control over my own life. Simple choices, taking a walk on a beautiful day, sitting quietly to read a book, or simply being alone, became difficult. I began to feel that I was no longer a person with my own desires and pace of living, but merely a part of a smoothly operating system. It was in those quiet moments that I understood the nursing home had not only taken away my living space, but had also silently altered how I saw myself. I was no longer living by my own choices, but learning to adapt to limits that had already been set. That was when I clearly felt that this decision had consequences far greater than anything I had initially imagined. One of the most painful truths I had to face while living in the nursing home was the feeling of gradually being forgotten. On the first day I moved in, my family held my hand and promised they would visit often, that I would never be lonely, and for a short time, that was true. My daughter came by every week, my grandchildren visited on weekends, bringing laughter and familiar stories from the outside world. In those moments, I still felt connected to my old life, still part of my family's rhythm. But as time passed, things began to change. Visits became less frequent and were eventually replaced by brief phone calls. My daughter grew busier, my grandchildren grew up and built lives of their own. I understood that, and I did not blame anyone. Yet understanding did not make the loneliness any easier. Holidays became the hardest times. Everyone said they would come, but plans changed. And once again I sat there, watching the common door open and close, holding on to the fragile hope that this time someone would walk in for me. Some evenings I held my phone for a long time, unsure whether I should call my son. I was afraid of disturbing him, afraid of becoming a burden, afraid of hearing those familiar apologies about being too busy. In the end, I put the phone down in silence. It was in that moment I realized my life had narrowed into nothing more than days of waiting. The most painful part was not that my family no longer loved me, but the feeling that I was slowly becoming invisible in their lives. When you are no longer present every day, people easily assume that you are fine, that you have adjusted to your new life. But the truth is, the longer one stays in a nursing home, the more one needs to be remembered, to be asked about, to feel that they still matter. And that is a loneliness no crowded room can ever fill. Before moving into the nursing home, I believed my health was fairly good for my age. I was no longer as quick as I had been in my youth, but I still went to the market, cooked my own meals, walked around my neighborhood, and maintained small daily habits that kept my body moving. Those seemingly ordinary activities quietly preserved my strength and my sense of control over my body. I thought moving into a nursing home would allow me to rest more and struggle less, but I had not anticipated the cost of that convenience. When everything was done for me, I began to move less without even realizing it. Meals were brought directly to me, walking was limited to a few short hallways, and whenever help was needed, all I had to do was press a button. At first, this brought a sense of security, but gradually, my body began to respond. My legs grew stiffer, standing up from a chair became more difficult, and muscles that had once been used every day began to weaken at an alarming rate. I was not the only one. Around me were many people who entered the nursing home on their own 2 feet, only to gradually rely on walkers and eventually wheelchairs. I clearly remember Mrs. Alice, who walked every day when she first arrived and always said she would not let age defeat her. Yet after just a few months, she went outside less and less, and one day she looked at me and said, "I feel like I've aged 10 years in such a short time." It was then that I understood a simple truth. When you stop using your body slowly leaves you. Nursing homes are designed to make everything easier, but that ease unintentionally causes people to weaken much faster. Had I known this earlier, I would have tried harder to stay active and do everything I could for myself. Because once strength is lost, regaining it is far more difficult than people like to believe. One thing I did not think carefully enough about before moving into the nursing home was how much privacy and dignity I would lose. When I lived at home, whether alone or with family, I still had my own space. I could close my door, sit quietly for hours if I wished, and live according to my familiar rhythm without needing anyone's permission. In the nursing home, however, privacy gradually became a luxury. From the very first days, I clearly felt the constant presence of people coming in and out of my room. Staff came in on schedule to check on me, assist with daily activities, or sometimes simply entered before I had a chance to respond. Tasks that had once been deeply personal, changing clothes, bathing, or using the restroom, often required assistance from others. I understood they were doing their jobs, but having to rely on others for things I had done independently my entire life was difficult to accept. The loss of dignity did not come from a single moment, but accumulated through countless small things. Waiting for your turn to bathe, eating pre-planned meals, or being called by a room number instead of your name slowly made me feel less like a whole person. Even though I tried to arrange my living space, it still felt temporary, as if I were merely a guest in my own life. The situation became even more difficult for those who shared rooms. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have a compatible roommate. Noise, differences in daily habits, or even memory-related issues could disrupt sleep and wear down one's spirit. No matter how hard I tried to adapt, I could not shake the feeling that this was not home. Only after living there did I fully understand that dignity is not just about being treated kindly, but about having autonomy, privacy, and being regarded as a complete human being. And once those things begin to fade, reclaiming them becomes incredibly difficult. When I decided to move into the nursing home, I kept telling myself that it was only a temporary solution. I believed I would try living there for a while, see how things went, and if it did not suit me, I could always return home. That thought brought me comfort when I first walked through those doors. What I did not realize was that some decisions in life, once made, leave the path back far narrower than before. As time passed, my old home gradually became unfamiliar. It stood empty, received little care, and familiar belongings were reorganized or even sold by my children and grandchildren who assumed I would no longer need them. Each time I thought about returning, everything became more complicated. My family worried and advised me that staying in the nursing home was safer, that they only wanted what was best for me. I understood their concern, yet deep inside I felt my right to choose slipping away. Not only had my circumstances changed, but I had changed as well. After months of living in an environment where everything was provided, I grew weaker both physically and mentally. I no longer felt confident that I could live independently as I once had. Fear of falling, fear of illness, fear of being alone made me hesitate whenever I considered leaving. That fear held me there, even though my heart longed to return to my old life. I met many people who shared the same thoughts. They entered the nursing home believing they were just staying temporarily, only to realize that time, health, and circumstances had quietly sealed the door behind them. For some, once their homes were sold or their finances depleted, the option of leaving disappeared entirely. Only then did I understand a truth few people talk about. Moving into a nursing home may seem like a reversible decision, but for many, it becomes a turning point where the outside world slowly closes forever. Looking back on everything I have experienced, I do not regret growing old. Aging is something no one can escape, and every wrinkle carries the memories of a long life. What I regret most is believing that the nursing home was the only option left for me. I entered with hopes of safety, care, and a gentler life. What I received was not merely a change of living space, but the gradual loss of the things that once made me feel truly alive. I lost my independence, my privacy, my sense of purpose, and even the feeling that I was still useful. These things did not disappear suddenly. They slipped away quietly, until one day I realized it was already too late. Nursing homes are not always bad. For some people, they are necessary for medical care and safety. The problem is that many of us enter not because we have no other choice, but because it seems like the easiest choice at the time. If I could go back, I wish I had fought harder to stay in my own home, to seek other forms of support without trading away all my freedom and personal identity. Perhaps I could have hired help, adapted my living space, or relied on more flexible support from family instead of completely giving up the life I knew. So if you or someone you love is standing before this decision, I hope you will pause and think carefully. Do not only ask what is most convenient, but ask what truly protects long-term quality of life. Daily routines, freedom of choice, and the feeling of control over one's own life, these are not small things. They are quiet yet priceless values, worth preserving for as long as possible.